It's 9:30. I'm not pushing, but it's 9:30.
Gil's got bedtime.
Okay.
I got bedtime too.
Exactly.
I have
Right,
an
I
event.
think it might be time to introduce you all to everyone out there. I'm not going to do the actual introductions. I'm Victoria Preber. I'm the food editor of the Jewish Chronicle, and I'm super excited tonight to be hosting this panel of amazing Israeli foodies who've been so kind to come at the end of their Yom Ha'atzmaut celebration and share their knowledge on full bellies. I'm sure we've missed being able to travel for the last year, which is why the IGTO, the Israeli Government Tourist Office, wanted us to put together a celebration for Israel's 73rd birthday. This is the first of our 4 events, all about food. And our host this evening, who's going to be asking the questions, is Roger Sherman. Now, I've written something down here about Roger to introduce him to you. I'm not going to talk too much longer. Roger's documentaries have won 2 Academy Award nominations, an Emmy, a Peabody, and a James Beard Award. He's as passionate about Israeli food as we are. He's hiding. His film, In Search of Israeli Cuisine, which is fabulous, I loved it, is a portrait of the Israeli people told through food, conflict, and all, has received worldwide acclaim. He's following it with The New Face of Israeli Cuisine, a virtual conversation presented to groups like this one. I'm going to vanish in a minute, but Roger, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about The New Face of Israeli Cuisine.
Sure. There were so many scenes that were not included in the feature film, and people kept asking what's next. And I realized, wait a minute, I have all this material. So I started this event, which is very interactive. I show a scene, and then people ask questions, or I discuss whatever it happens to be. Bedouin, we go to a Bedouin wedding. We do all kinds of different things, meet people that Israelis might know, but people around the world might not know. And then I show another scene and we talk, and I show another scene and we talk. It was live until the shutdown. And so now I'm doing it virtually. So if you go to my website, israelicuisine.com, you can find a lot more about it and contact me if you want me to present it to your group. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Are we started? Is that it, Victoria?
Yeah, we're good to go. Please feel free to introduce everyone and to kick off the questions, Roger.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, I've just done my thing, so that's really it, right? Bye. Thanks for coming. So we have some wonderful, wonderful people here in and around the food business. And Gil Hovav, a great friend, identify yourself. Inbal Baum, who I've gotten to know also. New friends, Abner Laskin, and you'll have to just assume you know which one he is by process of elimination, and Orly Bronstein. So welcome all. It's such a strange time. I hope we're coming out of this pandemic. And I'd like to get a sense from each of you what it was like cooking. We all know we were very isolated, that it must have been very difficult for everyone, but I'm interested in cooking. You know, everything shut down. There was no more calling out for pizza until things opened up a little bit. Here in the States, restaurant food deliveries were so substandard, even from really good restaurants, because just the 15 or 20 minutes that it took to deliver and however long it waited for the delivery person, it just wasn't worth it. And we just decided we were going to cook, or I should say, Dorothy cooked, because I married very well. So Gil, I've never seen so many process Instagram posts from you, where you show the ingredients, then you show the cooking, then you show the finished food. What was your cooking like?
So I know it's impolite to say, but I think that 2020 was one of the best years of my life. I really loved shutdown. And we were at home. It's myself, my partner, and our daughter. And I was busy cooking just so they don't get out, so they don't run away. And I found out that we go back to much simpler food. And actually, for me, it was the comeback of cucina povera to our table. We wanted the safety and the feeling of home that simple foods give you. And every day we ate 2 meals together around the table, and it was just wonderful. But it wasn't adventurous. Food, we just came back to basics, and it was great. And I found out that many Israelis did the same. And later on, when things started opening up for a bit, chefs started cooking at home and entertaining people because the restaurants were still closed. Now they're open. And again, chefs were cooking very basic and simple food, which is the food that I like best. So for me, it was just a renaissance of old times, and it was wonderful.
Your daughter is 17. Was she into cooking before, and did she get into cooking with you?
My daughter tried to cook a hard-boiled egg twice in her life and failed. So I don't think that cooking would be her turf, but she's very much into math. So she knows to do stuff that I don't.
Inbal, you have 2 little ones. What was cooking like for you? And I imagine just, you weren't always running off to some tour or something. So that must have been both good, and you probably wanted to run away at times. Tell us about your year in cooking.
So I have a different perspective than Gil. Being in lockdown with a 2.5-year-old or 2-year-old at the time and a 4-year-old at the time is a little bit of a nightmare. And so I run a culinary tourism business called Delicious Israel, and my nature is to I graze. I eat small things throughout the day because usually on tours we have a bit of hummus and a bit of this and a bit of this. So my stomach isn't used to having like meals. I'm used to eating all the time. It's like not like there's no end to my meals. So cooking was tough, I have to say. I had a different perspective. So my husband and we started a pandemic pivot business called Delicious Experiences, which is all virtual global culinary experiences. And we were really busy. And we've got the kids like monkeys, like climbing on our head, who have zero appreciation for the depth of anything I cook more than pasta and like giving them gvina levana white cheese. So we kind of just like gave up, to be honest. And cooking for me was like, there was like one day, what I was cooking a lot of cocktails. I was making a lot of cocktails.
That helps.
No surprise there.
And I have a feeling a few people may be able to identify with that. So I actually picked up a really great, pandemic skill. I didn't do sourdough. I wasn't really on the banana bread track like everybody was, but I did cocktails. But for me, I'm very big in supporting local. So even though things were closed, we were ordering a lot. And and I think a lot of restaurants actually figured out, and private chefs figured out how to, you mentioned about the quality, they figured out the quality. And they figured out how to, and there's certain foods, of course, that lend themselves better to.
Yeah, I want to come back to the pivoting and that later. So let's switch. Orly, what was your time like? You have a family that's half grown.
Yeah, my daughters were at home, and we were eating 3 meals a day together around the table, and it's not something that happens occasionally. And we were baking breads and bagels and all kind of cakes and cookies. and we were starting to even preserve vegetables, olives, all kind of things that really didn't. My daughter, they don't feel very to be in the kitchen too much. They are used to let me do all the work, but because they didn't have anything to do, so they try to bake and do all kind of things that were really. It was. I think that Gil is really say whatever I feel, because it was amazing time. I don't know. I don't want it to be like that again. I don't think that I will be able to do it next year. But it was really nice time for the family. Really.
Great. Can you put your phone tilt down a little so we see more of you? Oh, there you are. Hello.
Ah,
Sorry.
So Avner, you're a chef. You have a catering company. You've had restaurants. I don't know that you're the primary cook in your household, but how did your experience go? Do you agree with Gil and his insights about chefs? What was your year like in cooking? We'll get to the business later.
No, actually, it was a very busy year, like extremely busy. Lockdowns, I was cooking at home and inventing recipes and trying to analyze more my way. And I came to a lot of conclusion that time, actually, very interesting conclusion. And when it was open, I was kind of busy because I'm a private chef and I host in my backyard in front of the wood fire oven. So everybody wants to come, small groups and stuff like that. So we were very busy. But in between, I had a lot of time to think, and I realized many things about what we call Israeli cuisine that made sense to me. I was watching a lot of history and documentaries about Mediterranean food and about Mediterranean things. And about 10 months ago, it just hit me. And I understood exactly what I need to change in my food, in my way of thinking when I write a menu, when I decided what to serve to people. And what I found out actually changed my world, seriously. I discovered that, okay.
No, please continue. No, continue, because if you're that, I was going to say that's a very good segue into business. So if you want to segue now into your business, but I really want to hear what was the light bulb that went off that you said, oh, maybe I have to do this differently, or what was the big learning takeaway?
About 5 years ago, I decided that I'm not calling myself Israeli cuisine anymore, because I started calling myself like that about 13, 14 years ago. I was one of the first that started this kind of food. And about 5 years ago, I understood that it's not right to call it like that, because it's not Israeli, it's Mediterranean food, what I do, and to be honest. And I was sticking to that title until 10 months ago. 10 months ago, I saw a documentary, and suddenly I realized that if we separate the Mediterranean, it divides to two major forces. There is the Muslim force and there is the Christian force. And the Christian force is part of Jews, because there is the part of the Mediterranean that drinks wine and the part of the Mediterranean that doesn't drink wine. And if you look at the part that drinks wine, his seasoning, his food is completely different from the other part that doesn't drink wine. So as a Jew, as a person that likes wine and think that wine is the best companion for a meal, I understood that I need to be focused on doing dishes and menus that wine is the best companion for them. And it means to take out a lot of spices. It means to take out a lot of strong flavors that doesn't work well with wine. And in that case, I decided that if I want to do local, I want to do the local more deep, more like the terroir has to be very Israeli with Mediterranean influence. You know, You following me? You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes. Can you give an example of what that might be?
For
And
example,
how you did it before and what you would do now?
for example, I will never use warm spices like North African spices anymore. If I need to get spiciness, I will get it from fresh chili. I will make a fresh chili paste, and I'm not going to use like dry chilies. I'm not going to use cinnamon. I'm not going to use cumin. I'm not going to use turmeric, paprika, all those things that are stealing the show and overpowering the food in a way that the wine is fading away in the meal. For example, I have a friend that makes Grenache in Israel. He makes a white Grenache, he makes a rosé Grenache, and he makes a red Grenache. From the same grape, he made 3 types of wine. And this guy is 10 kilometers from my house, and the wine are lovely. And as a chef, my responsibility is to give him the stage for his wines, and the food has to be supportive of these wines. This is the new philosophy that I developed. I mean, everything I want to use local. I can use Mediterranean technique. I can do a paella, but I will use the flavors and the terroir of here. I will not use smoked paprika because it's not what we use here in Israel. It's not a flavor of Israel. So I will take the technique and I will combine it with Israeli ingredients, with Israeli flavor, things like that. Just an example for something.
I must say that this sounds fascinating and smart, but the Moroccan in me and the Tunisian in me.
Yes, I'm thinking in the paprika, my Hungarian. I'm like,
because
that's what I want to say.
It's very smart and full of thought, and I really appreciate your take on food. But you know, I grew up on these spices as an Israeli, and on a lot of wine too. So I think that I found a way to combine local wines or imported wines with imported tastes from the Muslim world. And actually in Israel, during Corona, there was one of the big stars of Israeli kitchen is a lovely Muslim Arab Israeli lady called Nof Atamna. Her Instagram page was super popular, and every day she posted a new Arab dish, and she was very strict about it, calling it Arab or Palestinian, but not necessarily, of course, Jewish Israeli, although she is Israeli. And so we ate a lot of Arab stuff because I was cooking from her page, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful, and I must say that I would find it very difficult to give up all these spices.
Can you spell her name in English and in Hebrew? And do you know what she goes by on Instagram?
Her name is Nof Atamna, and Nof is N-O-F, and Atamna is A-T-A-M-N-A, Atamna. And her cooking is divine, and it's very Arab and very Muslim, and very sophisticated.
Avner, it sounds like what you discovered to do is to simplify everything. And it turns out from years of eating and years of, looking very carefully at food, that the simplest foods are often the most difficult to make, the most difficult to prepare. What's your thought?
You're totally right. I mean, I'm cooking for 34 years, from 1987, and I can tell you that if I will do a dish today that I did 25 years ago, it will taste completely different. There is definitely something about the years of experience, but I want to answer Gil about something he said. I have solutions replacing those warm Moroccan spices. I came out with a lot of techniques based on natural things to get the flavor right. I'm playing with the amber of the fire. I'm playing with a lot of tricks that is very Mediterranean food that I will get to a very similar result without using all those overpowering spices. I mean, I have the solution for that.
Interesting.
So we're all coming to your house for this
You're
dinner.
welcome.
We're coming
Whenever
very
next
soon,
time
and-
you're in Israel, that's an invitation.
Well,
Well,
we're
I'm
also
in Israel, so.
You are invited.
Gil, let's
But
go
we're
next
inviting,
week.
we're inviting everyone that is also tuned in. So it's, you know, you're a caterer. You make meals in your backyard for a lot of people. So you'll be able to, you're all invited. I'm inviting you to Avner's house. So
Avner,
Great.
what wine will we be drinking? What's the Grenache what's the producer that you mentioned?
Vitkin. No, I'm just giving an example, but there is a lot of nice. I just gave an example of somebody who's using a Mediterranean grapes and he's making 3 types of wine. And each wine, it has different character. It's very interesting. And actually, it can cover the whole season of the year. You have a white, you have a rosé, and you have a red. Just an example. But I'm working with a lot of boutique chefs, boutique wineries, sorry. And I mean, those guys are amazing what they do. What they did in the last 20 years, all those little boutique winemakers, they just put Israel on the map. I mean, they have a language, they have a style. I mean, I'm proud to say that we have Israeli wine. And Israeli wine, I will say it under the same roof, like I would say Toscan wine, like I would say Spanish wine, Rioja wine. The thing is, I was trying to say that when you think like that, you think about recipes that will work really well with the creation of the winemaker. And if you combine those two together, this is where you have a style. For example, if you drink in Tuscany Brunello de Montalcino, it works amazingly well with the Tuscan kitchen because it suits for the Tuscan dishes. And I'm looking to create a kitchen that will work really well with all those new wines that I'm making, the Mediterranean flavor, Mediterranean grapes wine. And for me, it's a goal. It's a goal for the next 5, 6, 10 years from now. I want to have all my dishes in the menu that it's working really, really nice from wines that coming from the north, from Jerusalem mountains, and from the south. And each area.
It's really amazing.
yeah, we talk a lot about wine in my presentation, The New Face of Israeli Cuisine, ancient grapes and how they're being revived. Israel with their 350 boutique wineries last time I checked. And one of the problems with Israeli wine around the world is that it's relegated to the kosher section of wine stores. So the Pinot Noirs and the Cabernet Sauvignons are in the kosher section. They're not with the cabs. So anybody that's not in Israel, the next time you go to your local wine store, what you can do to help the Israeli wine industry is say, where are your kosher wines? And go back and say, wait a second, these are award-winning, world-class wines. They should be over there with the rest of the cabs and the Pinots and those kinds,
Roger.
those kinds of things. So I
It's
expect a good
olive oil.
olive oil too.
Yeah,
Olive oil too.
there are
Yeah.
great
So
olive oil.
Orly, you're a chef, you're a food writer. I assume the chefing probably stopped. I don't know. You can tell us. Did you continue writing? I'm going to screw up the title for Al Hashulchan, where you're the gastronomic editor. Did they change the kind of things they were focusing on from before the pandemic?
Al Hashulchan was closed, so there is this magazine called Hashulchan. It's not the same owners, but they were also trying to give the people a lot of basic recipes and to give the people whatever they need to know about healthy food, because some of the people started to think about how they are going to be eating not too good, and they're going to be fat, and so a lot of people will start to talk about the healthy food, about how you can eat less. All kind of diets were really like a keto. I forgot keto. Keto is like everyone here making keto diet, and all kind of diets. But I think that the most important thing that was really, really amazing here is the thing that people started to know the farmers. They started to buy vegetables from the farmer that they were coming to here. I'm living in Kiryat Ono, so farmers came here near my house, and they sell all the stuff that they couldn't sell to the restaurant and the hotels. And we have here really great asparagus and artichokes and all kind of vegetables in really high quality that we don't have usually here.
Yes, we should mention that usually it's illegal in Israel for farmers to come with a truck and just sell stuff from the truck. But since stores felt unsafe, the authorities said, well, okay, so little markets started budding in all sorts of neighborhoods, and it was a very pleasant experience to buy directly from farmers, and cheaper too. So it was nice.
Yeah, really, eggs and milk and cheese, all kind of things were really, it was amazing.
And really helping them to obviously reduce the waste that was going to happen. I mean, I also, that was one of the best results, being able to buy hotel and restaurant quality produce, the stuff that normally goes to the best, just delivered to my home. And I think that that's for a lot of people. And also the innovation that came out with those farmers. I know that there's now farmers, I forgot the name of the website, but there's a company that you can actually search and find where the farmer is near you. So that's been a huge joy, I think, for the people who want to eat sustainable and local.
That's wonderful. The farmers markets here were just about the only places we went to. They're always there, different days of the week, and we would go regularly. And the big purveyors who only sold to restaurants before started selling to us, and the quality is fantastic. Of course, they started with a minimum of a $250 purchase, then a $100 purchase, then a $50 purchase, because it didn't fly. I apologize. Can you hear the construction that's going on outside my apartment? If you can. Not much I can do about it.
We cannot. Don't
Great.
be stressed.
Great. So Inbal, Delicious Israel, you stopped doing those beautiful, intimate tours that you were so famous for, and you and your husband started a company. What did he do before you two started a company?
So he's a high-tech, classic Israeli high-tech genius, comes up with brilliant technologies, brings them to life, changes the world. And by chance, his previous company, which was in the space of autonomous vehicle technology, went into hibernation. Apparently, autonomous vehicles aren't moving as quickly as they had hoped, the progress. So he was free. And so one night, after doing about a month of refunds and being quite upset about the state of the world, as of course many people were, I spent my way of reacting was talking to people. So I was on the phone day and night with friends and colleagues and clients and customers, and just the thing I kept hearing over and over again is we miss, there was a lot of TV, like Gil was mentioning the Instagram, and you guys were talking about the Instagram, like a lot of people were doing Instagram Live. There was a lot of people who were picking up new hobbies through Masterclass, and a lot of great ways to experience things that you were watching, not a lot of great ways to experience things that you were actually still experiencing. And I think even still today, people are really missing. I mean, we're still really like isolated here. There's travel isn't really open. Again, you can travel locally, but it's different. You want to experience things. Everybody wants to experience things, which is of course what my whole business is based on. And so we started doing these online experiences, and we said, let's bring people in. So we went around before one of the lockdowns or in between one of the lockdowns, went around, filmed all of my vendors and created some interesting footage. I probably should have talked to you, Roger, gotten your video footage. And we started bringing people into what still today people miss coming to Israel. Like who out there doesn't want to come? Like get on the plane and come to Avner's backyard and drink the grinas from Vitkin. And so we said, how can we bring this to people in some kind of way? So we started doing Israeli experiences where we were doing virtual food tours, and we still are doing cooking classes and cocktail classes, which I'm not teaching, but I think Israeli cocktails is another part of, and Israeli wine tasting and Israeli whiskey tasting and spirits tastings. So we started doing these globally, and we said, and kind of one night I was thinking, and I was like, okay, there are delicious Israels all over the world, and there's chefs who I'm talking to who are struggling because they're not doing what they love. So our pandemic was a way to bring people these experiences with people around the world. So not just, so we have the Israel experiences through Delicious Israel, as well as our global experiences, which have a number of Israeli chefs, because like we hear now globally that people just want to eat our food and learn about it. So, and actually when you were talking about the simplicity of it, part of the challenge of cooking abroad Israeli cuisine, of course, is the lack of those great local farmers, the great cherry tomatoes and the great flavors that you can get. Cooking a cauliflower is easy here because the cauliflower is so good. So now we are really focused in this virtual space, and we've actually seen how beautiful it is, because we can reach people that may or may not have come to Israel anyway, or may not have been traveling to XYZ place around the world. And we're doing this actually a lot for companies that want to introduce people, for whatever reason, to different kinds of cuisines, and are trying to connect with clients and have team bonding experiences. So there's a lot of really great outcomes that have come, and we're just literally counting the days until May, I think 23rd is the day that they've announced that tour groups can come back. So please get in a group, come. But until then, and it won't stop. We will continue. We've learned this new path. And I think very importantly, also globally, people have accepted this way of doing things. You would have never done a client sales event where you're like tasting whiskey together. That would have been crazy. You would have maybe done a meeting. So now it's become very accepted and acceptable.
It's going to stay like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been interesting.
So how do you get the whiskey to everybody all over the world?
Yeah, so we've just created and continue to create this network of suppliers and providers, and we have there's some, there's not that much. When you mentioned the kosher wine section or whatever, or olive oils, like we are doing also kits with different products, and it's not easy to get a lot of things in a lot of places. So we're really putting all of our networks and our vendors, and if anyone is out there who's interested in working together on this, like, we love it, because being able to support for the Israeli side of things, being able to support the Israeli vendors is fantastic. But you know what? It's okay if you can't get an Israeli Silan, and you can get a California Silan, or you can get an interesting date honey from Lebanon or wherever is, that's great too. The taste might be a bit different, but you'll have a wonderful taste experience, which is the most important thing.
Great. Orly, it looked like you wanted to contribute something.
Yeah, because there's a lot of boxes and packages that all kind of people here sending from Jerusalem. There are, I think, I know 2 or 3 ladies that sending the best of Jerusalem all over the world. It's coffee and halva and olive oil and spices and all kind of things. And from the north also, from Haifa and Acre and Nazareth, and all over the country, and they send it in a box all over the world. I sent one even to Australia. So it's really, really amazing thing that the COVID bring it. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're an innovator, if you're someone who's able to think beyond what's now, this was could offer great opportunities, because whether it be like Avner was saying, to really like internalize and think about what's important to you. Everybody in this time period was forced to think about what's important to them. The number of times I had conversations with people about changing jobs and changing locations, and and coming back to what's important for them. And for so many people that at least I communicate with, it's food. And it's the core of what you do in your day, and you plan your days and your lives around it, or at least again, the people that I know do. So so having these taste experiences, no matter where you are and whatever mental situation you're in, because this was a really tough time, and that comfort is so important to
it's wonderful to hear that there were positive experiences, even life-changing experiences in a very positive way. There's also been so much depression and in this country, drug abuse and all kinds of horrors. It's so refreshing to hear that, because every day in the newspaper, that's all you don't hear the good stuff. We're going to get to questions from our wonderful guests in a minute. I just wanted to ask one more question. So at the end of May, things will open up again. I won't be there till a year from March. I'm leading a tour, the official In Search of Israeli Cuisine food tour. But what do you think will not get back to the way it was before? There are things that here in New York feel that may never get back, or it's going to take years. Gil, do you have a sense of, in the food world?
I must disappoint you. I think that everything got back to normal in Israel already. We thought at the first 2 weeks, maybe, when things started opening up, that yes, actually restaurants are not that necessary. We'll go out less, but everything is packed. You cannot get a table in a restaurant in Tel Aviv. Everybody wants to get back to life. And Tel Aviv is very vibrant right now. It was Yom HaAtzmaut, Independence Day. Everybody was out on the street celebrating, drinking, eating, partying. So I think it goes back to normal. It goes back to what it used to be. We are, as Orly mentioned, some stuff that we have learned how to do will stay with us. But I think that in general, we're just going back to normal.
Wonderful. Does everybody agree?
I have something to add, Roger.
Good.
I think that certain habits will stay with us for a long time. I mean, the fact that people were cooking in the house, and the fact that they were buying local ingredients and learning the importance of hugging the small suppliers and the small farmers, this will not change. And the fact that, I don't know, no, we didn't mention it, but Israelis are consuming a lot of food this year. They're consuming a lot of wine, a lot of alcohol. There is a big demand for a quality alcohol in Israel. So people are doing the same parties in their houses. So this is something, yeah, it's true that the restaurants are full, but people learn to enjoy their own houses, and I think they will travel less. Maybe it will come back in a year or two, but for the next year, they will spend more time in the house, and they will spend the time in the restaurant and celebrating in their own houses. This is my opinion.
And I can assure you that Inbal and I are going to stick to cocktails, right? This is something we learned from COVID. Drink more.
Is great.
Life is too short.
Our next gathering will be at cocktail hour. So let's bring Victoria back in, because I'm sure she's just loaded with questions, and we hope to answer some of them. Hi, Victoria.
Hi, I've been enjoying it behind the mask of the picture. I'll read the questions that we've been asked, Roger, shall I? Just to bring...
Yes, please. And tell us who asked. It's always nice to have a little bit more connection.
Okay, well, the first question is anonymous. So I guess maybe they'll put their hands up and tell us who they are. They are asking for a small group visiting Israel for the first time and not familiar with Israeli food, for a week, for example, which places would you definitely recommend to visit or taste to have a nice overview of Israeli cuisine, besides hummus, they've said?
My advice is always don't skip Tel Aviv. Usually tourists, when they come to Israel, they think about Jerusalem, they think about Nazareth, they think about the Galilee, they think about this and that. Tel Aviv is the center, and a lot of the progress of Israeli cuisine eventually happens in Tel Aviv. It may come from a local grower, something in the Galilee, but eventually it gets to Tel Aviv. So Tel Aviv has 3 wonderful markets. Tel Aviv has the biggest number of restaurants in Israel. Don't skip Tel Aviv, and it's a lovely city too.
And specific foods, I would focus on street food. I would spend your days eating street food. Well, I would spend your morning eating a hotel breakfast. I would spend your days eating food, and I would spend your evenings dressing up and if you're in one of the cities, Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, and hitting the scene and checking out the modern side of the cuisine and the modern side of the nightlife, especially. But if you're spending your days, besides which hummus is important, and it is something you must have. But other dishes that should be on your radar, sabich, S-A-B-I-C-H, is a must. It's vegetarian. You can even find gluten-free options, and it is very, it's our version of fast food, which is, when you try it, you'll see it's filled with vegetables and healthy, and it's very far from fast food that is identified in other places. So,
and another dish, if we're talking about street food, the recent hit of recent years is arais, which is the Arab hamburger. So it's minced meat inside a pita, and the pita bread is grilled. It's lovely. It's an Arab version of a hamburger, and like Arab stuff, it's usually better. So you should try it.
We've got some recipes
And
on
nuts
Facebook for
also.
that too. It's fabulous. Sorry, Orly, continue. Sorry.
Okay, I will suggest markets to look for the ingredients and for the special dishes. I will go to the markets in Haifa and in Jerusalem, of course, and in Acre, all kind of places, Nazareth, because it's the people make the food little bit different. Even hummus or falafel or rice, it's in Nazareth, there's the one that started the whole revolution of the rice, but all kind of dishes are really, they're really like all over, all places make it a little bit different. So markets and places with the Arab people or a Druze kitchen is very, very tasty, and it's similar to the Arab kitchen, but it's different. And in Jaffa, there is the Bulgarian and all kind of Turkish dishes. And I think markets are the place to go to.
Avner, I'm going to ask you the same. I was going to sort of skip and go to another question, but someone further down the list has said they want to hear more about the Israeli food and the tips. So Avner, what would your tips be for where to get the big picture?
I'm bribed because I grew up in the Galilee. For me, the Galilee is the crown jewel. So I like Haifa, I like Nazareth. Jerusalem, the big market, because it's very interesting. There is a lot going on. The old city of Jerusalem is very interesting. But as Gil said, they must devote 2 days to Tel Aviv, because Tel Aviv is the center and everything happens in Tel Aviv.
I have a question that follows up on that. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I was there, it was not advisable to trust the concierge in a hotel for the really good, smaller, boutique-y, chef-driven restaurants. Has that changed?
We don't know who the concierges are going to be when the hotels open up again.
Well, we're assuming the hotels will open. So, do you trust concierge these days before the lockdown?
We're not
I think Instagram is the answer. Everybody who's on Instagram knows what's going on. I mean, this is the scene now, Instagram.
But I think one of the big challenges is when you start doing some research, it's overwhelming. It's truly overwhelming. There is a never-ending list, and if you're in Israel for, let's say you're lucky and you're here for a week or a few more days than a week, how do you know you're here? Let's say you're in Tel Aviv for 2 days and you're Jerusalem. How do you know what, how do you know what to eat? It's one of the things that, we're focused on as a tour company, because you go to the concierge and you're right. Like they send you to either the one who's giving them a little bit of money to give them that suggestion, or to the places that they're not necessarily thinking globally about what should someone experience when they're eating the kind of food. So I think that I think Instagram is a great source, and you have to find the ones that kind of fit your language and your excitement, and then try to narrow, because you can't do everything. And there's going to be a lot of FOMO if you're trying to eat here and eat here. And you also want to see some sites, maybe.
We never trust the concierge anywhere in the world. But another problem, Roger, you were mentioning the little boutique restaurants with super chefs. But I think that the real force and the real power in Israeli cuisine is simple restaurants, working class restaurants, and these do not get that much exposure, not with the concierges and not with Instagram. So it is a problem, but I definitely wouldn't recommend to overlook them, because these places that are usually kosher and usually open only for lunch, this is where you would get all the different flavors of Israel: Georgian food, Uzbeki food, Ethiopian food, Russian food, Arab food, of course, Moroccan, etc. And these are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful restaurants that in the evening, as Inbal suggested, dress up and, Orly suggested, dress up and hit the town. But for lunch, it's either a market or a working class restaurant in a less fashionable neighborhood, but it's good.
There are also tour companies in Israel that have food tour specialties. So you should look, if you've never been, you should look for those and get help. They don't have to do everything. You can have a tour guide a little, you can have a tour guide a lot. They can set up reservations for you. They can do so many different things. So look and do some research about where, what a good company is. I have some restaurant.
Roger, I have a company that does just that, right? DeliciousIsrael.com. We do everything you just said. So.
I wasn't going to make a big plug, but I assume your check is in the mail. Anyway, my website has some suggestions for great places as well. IsraeliCuisine.com. How about let's move to another question.
Okay, well, this sort of follows on a bit. Ben Grossman has asked, he said, Tel Aviv used to be hard to find kosher restaurants. Is it still the case? Many used to be open on Shabbat. What's the best kosher restaurant in Tel Aviv?
Kosher restaurants in Tel Aviv is a problem. Go to Jerusalem. Tel Aviv is non-kosher. It's not about being kosher, and everything is open on Shabbat. It's true.
Except that there's one at the hotel. Is it the Carlton? Wasn't there a restaurant at the top of the Carlton?
I think it closed down.
Yeah, Olive Leaf. I think now.
But there's
it was Meir Adoni's restaurant on the roof of the Carlton. Olive Leaf is at the Sheraton. But I think it closed down.
There's an important chef in Israeli cuisine. His name is Eyal Shani. He's made a huge impact in Israeli cooking and the simplicity, and coming back to the roots of the simplicity. And he has a kosher restaurant called Malka.
I ate there. It was fabulous. Last time I was there, I went there. So that's still going.
In Tel Aviv.
Yes, I went there. Yep, go there, Ben.
And again, if you go to the working class restaurants, they are mostly kosher, even in Tel Aviv, but they're not open for dinner. It's for lunch.
Also, in the last 5 years, the top chefs like Meir Adoni have been drawn by smart hotels to open restaurants in the hotels that are kosher. So if you look for star chefs, look at hotels and see what the restaurant is and see who the chef is or the executive chef. Then look further to see that they have other restaurants, they do other kinds of things, and it's not just a hotel restaurant.
Yeah, but I must say, as a restaurant critic, I must say that this sort of faded away. It didn't work out. The
Oh.
kosher chef restaurants in hotels turned out to be not as good as we expected, and they were mainly for tourists, and we love tourists, but they didn't prove that they were worth the price or the visit.
And
That's too bad.
I want to add on also, there's one topic that we that hasn't come up yet, but is connected to the kosher, which is vegan. And a lot of the excellent vegan restaurants, if you're someone who keeps kosher and you may or may not need a teudah, if you don't need the kosher certification, a lot of these vegan restaurants may not have the certification, but are kosher by nature. So so those are plentiful, and there's exquisite vegan restaurants in every type of range, whether it be from the street food style to the absolute high-end modern style.
It's absolutely.
Israel has the highest percentage of vegans per capita in the world. Early, I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, that's right. It's a wonderful idea what Inbal said, because there are a lot of places, vegan places, and they are really kosher by nature. Lovely sentence.
Yeah, so just to mention one name, in Tel Aviv, there's a lovely vegan restaurant called Bana, B-A-N-A.
And Anastasia.
It's lovely. It's very Tel Avivian. It's open for dinner, and it's totally vegan. So I wouldn't know whether a rabbi signed any papers, but it's no, you know, it's kosher. For us, it's kosher.
Orly, which is the one that you were going to recommend?
Anastasia.
Okay.
Okay.
Also really, really good. And there is one more, I'm not sure about the name, Shirel Berger.
Opa.
Opa.
Yeah, that was the one that I was going to suggest.
Opa.
It's they have a
Opa.
tasting menu, which is very reasonably priced. But what's exquisite about it, it's just fruit and vegetable and grain based. So she's not classifying it necessarily as vegan. It's just she's using the fruits of the land. And
it's a very, very, very elegant restaurant. The others are very casual. Opa is like dress up when you go to Opa.
Definitely.
And there is the Tzemach, the new one of Machne
Yes,
Yehuda.
right, in Jerusalem. Yes.
Yes.
The vegan restaurant by the Machne Yehuda group. It's very nice.
The other thing to keep in mind is that Israel, especially in Tel Aviv, the restaurant scene is so hot that if you know you want to go to a particular restaurant, a month or 2 months before you depart your homes, make a reservation. Because often...
Good advice.
Or
Roger,
be
good
flexible
advice.
with the time. I think that usually a good tip for tourists is, you know, I live in Tel Aviv, I work in Tel Aviv, so I want to have dinner at 8. But if you're a tourist and you have free time, go and have dinner at 6:30 or at 10:30. Restaurants are open until midnight in Israel. So be flexible with your time, and then you'll get a table.
Yeah, take a nap.
That might answer my husband asked the secrets to getting the hottest tables. So beyond eating at early or late, are there any other tips? Or is that the answer really? Be flexible.
Be pushy. I mean, depending on the place, some of them really have set limits, but some of them, if you kind of show up physically and you're like, hi, I want to get in, like they'll find a way to put you in, you know, somehow. So
also don't be surprised. This is a big surprise to those of us who are not Israeli. They will sit you down at your table at 7:30 and say, you have till 9 o'clock, and then we need the table again.
Yes,
and
the 90-minute rule, which is wonderful.
Oh, they do that in London. That's
hospitality is not yet ingrained in Israeli restaurants.
No, it's Middle Eastern hospitality. It's just different. That's all. It's a different style.
I disagree. I also think it has improved drastically in the 10 years or 12 years that I've been living here. It is night and day, and you can come and you can get excellent service here, and you can have wonderful hostesses and excellent service here. And the sommeliers are fantastic, and you can really have just a world-class experience. So I think, and you can also not, just like anywhere else.
Victoria, what else do you have for us?
We have so many questions, which is great. Someone's asked, and this might be a quick one, why is it illegal in Israel? In fact, there are two questions that connect here. Why is it illegal in Israel for farmers to sell produce directly to the customer? And do we think those markets are going to last, the new farmers off the back of the truck markets?
It's not necessarily illegal, but the farmers are regulated, which is good. You want them to be clean, you want them to be, supervised, etc. So food trucks, for instance, are illegal in Israel. There are no food trucks in Israel. And also local markets. When I say local, I don't mean every city has one or two markets, but it's not that in a residential neighborhood on Tuesdays, you'll see 4 trucks selling produce. This is illegal in Israel because the state wants it to be clean and looked after. And actually, I think it is good because, as we know, Israelis can be very creative when it comes to money. So maybe it's good that that they're looking after us.
Yeah, it was Bruce who asked the question. There are plenty of fabulous markets, Bruce, so I wouldn't worry too much about these smaller offshoot markets because you will not be disappointed with the markets in Israel, that's for sure. Couple of similar, where did you rush to when lockdown ended or the shutdown? Where were the places that you rushed to eat? Each of you, where did you go first?
A Kosem. For me, it was a Kosem.
For those who don't know, Kosem is a very famous falafel, shawarma, wonderful place.
Yeah, the vibes, it's like Tel Aviv. To be eating lunch in Tel Aviv with the music and all the beautiful people. It was really the first one that I was.
It's a must.
I should add that it was a problem to rush to places when things opened up because many places are still shut down because there's a problem. Everybody is getting unemployment. So people did not want to come back to working. So many restaurants do not have staff. So you cannot rush to a restaurant. First you have to check that it's open, then you can go there. So my solution was to go to the market because of course that some places were open. So it was fun. But yes, it's like going back to Hakosem. It's actually going back to street food and to the vibe and to the feeling of togetherness.
So I had 2 different routes. Mine was because I have been doing a lot of delivery and ordering takeaway. We have a really great application here called Wolf. So if you're visiting and need to get like takeaway, it's really, really user friendly. And some of the things don't deliver as well. So for me, I went to an Indian restaurant because I really missed Indian food, like fresh Indian food. And the second one was this neighborhood Italian place for an aperitivo called Cicchetti. It's like small Italian plates and just like same thing Orly said, just like great vibe. You just want to sit there all afternoon and have a nice drink and some little food. And I just like missed that sitting and the being outside and, here like being outside and social distancing of the, being in outdoor restaurants is quite easy because there's a lot of cafes and restaurants that are by nature outdoor oriented here. So a lot of places also have like shrunk their inside and made bigger outdoor space available, which is really nice. So I think just that kind of sitting outside and being with people. And actually the biggest thing for me was sitting in a cafe with my computer, which is what I do most of the time. So that's been a joy to just sit and people watch and drink a coffee all day.
No children crawling all over you.
Avner's backyard. This is the place to be.
Yeah, definitely.
When? Just when?
Yeah, we're all coming over there. What have I got here? Are people happy to eat indoors post lockdown? Do you have to wear masks in restaurants? How's that working?
No, you don't. You have to show your green permit so that you're vaccinated twice. Yes. And it's scanned, and then you can take off your mask and you can, it's just normal. In the beginning, there were less tables because they tried to keep, people apart and not, but now it's
free for all.
Yes, it's back to normal.
Do we have time for one more? I'm conscious that we're approaching 8:30. I don't know if you guys are happy to have one more question.
Of
Roger,
course.
do you want to pick a question, or do we? There's some nice suggestions along here. But
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, what have we got here? So someone's asked asked us. Inbal mentioned hotel breakfast. Where's the best breakfast in Israel?
Ooh.
Can I start with Avner, because he hasn't said very much in the last few minutes. I'm putting you on the spot, Avner. Best breakfast.
I'm not going out, so I'm not the person to ask.
I've asked the wrong guy
Backyard,
then.
come on.
Okay, Avner
any
doesn't know.
hotel.
Any
I think
hotel?
Norman Hotel is a good one. Driscoll Hotel is a good one. Those
Yes.
two jump up into my mind.
I've eaten the Driscoll, the Norman. I was on a tour and I ate so much every day. I didn't have room for breakfast, and it's my biggest regret. I didn't eat breakfast in the Norman.
Those two hotels are really the best ones, in my opinion, in Tel Aviv. They're most interesting in terms of culinary, both of them.
Okay.
And Hotel
Another
Montefiore.
one is Montefiore also.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot
Hotel
him. Hotel Montefiore also.
Okay. I don't think I've got recommendations here. Someone said Goshen. Trevor Lee said Goshen. I don't know what we were talking about at that point.
We were
Kosher,
talking
probably.
about kosher restaurants in Tel Aviv. Goshen is a meat restaurant and it's kosher.
Jocelyn Wolfman has asked, what's the name of the Indian restaurant, please, that Inbal talked about?
Well, I actually don't recommend that one, so I'm not going to mention the name. But I do recommend a number of Indian restaurants, including Munnar, M-U-N-N-A-R. It is fabulous. Unfortunately, a few of the really kind of older, more established places have closed during the pandemic. So, but Munnar is fantastic. Salam Bombay, right across the way. Old kind of established place, just open for lunch, only open for lunch.
And if you're looking for kosher, there's a lovely place called Dosa Bar, which is vegan, Indian, and it's on Ben Yehuda Street. So we like the restaurant just because it's on a street that's named after my great-grandfather. So it's a perfect combination.
Great. Okay. Oh, do we try one more question, Roger? What do you think?
It's up to our panel. They seem very excited.
Yeah, of course.
Couple of minutes. Okay. What are the most used herbs of Israeli cuisine? Which herb? This is anonymous.
Za'atar.
Which herb should I buy when I visit next time?
Za'atar. Za'atar is both an herb and a blend. And depending on where your relatives, your heritage came from, you will have a more spicy blend or a different kind of blend. If you're from Tunisia, it will be one kind. If you're from Morocco, it will be another kind. And it's sold everywhere. And you should bring a giant thing back. And it's in Israel, it's put on everything, on bread, on labna, on everything.
I would say hawaj. Hawaj is a Yemenite blend of herbs. It means things. Haja in Arabic is a thing. Hawaj is the plural. It's many things. And there are two basic hawajages. One is coffee hawaj, which is a blend for coffee to spice up your coffee. And the other one is a savory hawaj, which is for fish and chicken and meat and etc. But again, every Yemenite family has their own recipe of hawaj, so it won't be the same taste necessarily if you go to a spice shop in Jerusalem and a spice shop in Haifa, let's say.
There's also a really nice option, which is a very user-friendly one. It's just called Grill Blend. Basically, something you'll see a lot here. It's Yom Ha'atzmaut, so a lot of grilling happening, and summer's coming. So if you want to get a nice rub, it's another blend, but it's something that has a very characteristically it brings memories of I don't know, it tastes like if anyone's had beastly, the snack, it's like a junk food snack. It has this kind of generic grill flavor, which is really nice on fish, on meat, on vegetables, really great. You can put it on broccoli. I have people telling me their kids are finally eating vegetables because they use it on it. So on salad.
Great. I'm going to just get rid of, someone's asked if brunch is a thing in Israel.
What?
On weekends. On weekends, yes.
Okay.
During the week, no, but on weekends, usually brunches are served until 12. Then restaurants close for half an hour, and then they prepare for lunch, and then it starts with a different menu. But Fridays and Saturdays, brunches are big.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a restaurant in Ba. You probably know it because Avihai brings tours there. It's Libyan and it's kosher and it's Gueta. It's in Jaffa, Gueta. You walk in, it's nothing special, and it's just incredible. The son is doing wonderful, wonderful things. You should tell him I sent you. And it's a great little place for lunch.
Indeed.
Excellent. I promise, I think we won't want to keep you up. You've had a busy night last night, I'm sure.
One more.
Oh, I've lost the question now. Oh, someone's asked about hummus. This is an extra one there. What, according to the panelists, is the perfect ratio of chickpeas to tahini while making a smooth hummus?
That's a question with no answer.
You'll all give me a different
answer. Because it's a personal taste. Everybody likes it differently.
How do you like it?
Yeah, but the creamy hummus is dependent on the boiling chickpeas, because if you boil it enough, they are smooth and they will be creamy. Okay, so you can do it with a lot of tahini or with less tahini, but the chickpeas itself is supposed to be very, very smooth. So this is the thing that I think in most of the places will be half and half, tahini and hummus, or 40, I think 40 to 60 for the hummus. I mean,
don't put these 4 people in a room together and say, decide what the best hummus is, because it's where they grew up. It's what
Exactly.
mother gave them. But I can tell you from doing all this research that I've done and a couple of films, the secret to the best hummus is the tahini. And the tahini you buy in a regular grocery store in the United States is not going to be so good. And there is a tahini out of Philadelphia called Soom, a company, SOOM. And they are 3 sisters. One lives in Israel and they have fantastic tahini. The other is called Al Ars, and it's a mother and daughter in Nazareth. And both of those are available on Amazon. You can buy them. That's the key. And now I'm going to give one plug to, where's my hand? To Michael Solomonov, who's the star of my film In Search of Israeli Cuisine and was anointed the best chef in the universe by the James Beard Foundation. He did a book called Israeli Soul. And there are lots and lots of simple recipes, including a 5-minute hummus with only one. You just use your Cuisinart. And it is fantastic. And whenever besides making it here at home, whenever we go to friends and we say they say bring something, this is what we bring and we serve with vegetables, and it's knockout.
Right, I am going to sadly bring this wonderful, wonderful event to a close.
Oh, no.
I know, we could go on all night. It's been so wonderful to have all of you here. Thank you so much. It's just been delicious. Please, everyone out there, I'm sure they'll be applauding you from their seats, but it's been fabulous. Thank you so much. I hope we get to come out and visit you really soon.
לשנה הבאה בתל אביב.
Amen.
Absolutely. And I am also going to recommend that you take a look at the JC. Everyone out there, we have plenty of lovely recipes. We feature recipes and information about these people, from these people. But and thank you, Roger, so much for chairing this evening.
Thank you,
My pleasure. Can I ask, Victoria, can I ask a question? Will this be will people be able to watch this on your website?
That is, do you know what? I'm hoping that our tech guy now, who's going to be closing up for us in a second, I'm messaging him now. I would imagine you can play it back on Facebook. I'm waiting for him to let me. Oh, hang on. We've recorded this on Facebook. Yeah, it's going to be available on the Facebook page. So
good. So tell all your friends. You don't want to miss this.
Thank you so very much.
Thanks, everybody.
I think Lawrence is going to close this down. Thank you so much. We can all say goodnight.
Thank you. Shalom, shalom.
See you
in Israel.
Next year,
or virtually.
Absolutely.